Good evening, all. Wishing you all the success in the 74th Independence year. May our dreams come true. We from SREC Alumni Association welcome everyone for the 11th webinar talk series, Education in Post-COVID Era. We welcome our principal ma'am, our speaker of the day, Dr.Ramasubramaniam, other faculty members from our college, and all our alumni friends. Dr. Ramasubramaniam belongs to 94-98 batch mechanical branch. He is an associate professor in the Center of Logistics and Supply Chain Management at LIBA. He is a certified supply chain professional and also a VLOG certified big data analyst. His areas of interest include logistics and supply chain management, Optidisk India, CMC Limited, ATG Tires India, and TVS Logistics. He is also a visiting faculty at Management Institute for Supply Chain Innovation. It's a part of the renowned MIT Boston Global Skills Network. கல்வி கற்க கப்பலேறி போன காலம் போயாச்சு. கருவில் உள்ள குழந்தைக்கு கூட கற்றுக் கொடுக்கும் காலமாச்சு. தலையை சுத்தி காதை தொட்டு பள்ளியில் சேர்த்த காலம் போய் பிறந்த 10 மாதத்திலேயே பள்ளியில் சேர்த்தாச்சு. விளையாட்டு குழந்தைக்கு பள்ளியில் விலை பேசியாச்சு. 10-12 மதிப்பெண் வாங்க பந்தயத்தில் விட்டாச்சு. விளையாட்டோடு விஞ்ஞானத்தை கற்றுக் கொடுத்த காலம் அது. விஞ்ஞான வளர்ச்சியால் விளையாடி கொண்டிருக்கும் காலம் இது. குருவை தேடி செய்திகள் கேட்டு கற்றது அக்காலம். கூகுளை பார்த்து குருவுக்கே பல செய்திகள் சொல்வது இக்காலம். காலம் மாறியது, கல்வி நிலை மாறியது. மாற்றம் ஒன்றே மாறாததாய் இருக்க, இதையெல்லாம் தவறு என்று சொல்லத்தான் சொல்லாமல் வந்து நில்லாமல் பரவி உல்லாசமாய் உலகை உலாவதும் கொரோனாவே. கிமு கிபி என்பது போய் கோமு கோபி என்று மாற்றிவிட்டாயே. ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸை கண்டு பயந்த காலம் போய் ஆன்லைனில் மட்டுமே கிளாஸாக ஆக்கிவிட்டாயே. ஹோம் ஸ்கூலிங்கை பிடிக்காமல் இருந்த காலம் போய் ஹோமில் மட்டும்தான் இனி ஸ்கூலிங் என மாற்றிவிட்டாயே. இனி கல்வியின் நிலை இதுதானோ என நம் மனதில் எழும் வினாவுக்கு விடை சொல்ல வந்துள்ளார் டாக்டர் ராமசுப்ரமணியன். ப்ளீஸ்.
Okay, can I start?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Vasanth. That was good. Okay, so I think this is one of the exciting topics of COVID times. Okay, not just for me. I think that is the same for all of you, all of the academic fraternity, and in fact, not just the academic fraternity, parents, public, and everyone is all the time talking about this, because one thing that has changed a lot after Corona came in is the education field. So I think that way it is very interesting to look at what is the trend that is happening here. Okay, yeah. So just in line with the previous introduction, I just want to thank the SREC Alumni Association for providing me an opportunity for giving a webinar, not just for our alumnus friends, and also for the other academicians. And I would also like to dedicate this talk to my father and mother, who gave me the education, without which I think I won't be here talking to you. So I think I also take this opportunity to thank them in every sense. So before we go into the talk, this is how I structured. So initially I was thinking whether I should be focusing only on the online classes and things like that. But I think instead of going that way, what I thought was I will structure this in a couple of sections where first I will talk about the COVID's impact on education. Okay, and then the second part of the talk, a brief, trends that are being observed in the current higher education field. So, as you know, education starts from the school and it goes on until the higher education and even beyond it. I mean, today there is a talk on lifelong learning, which is becoming a trend across all the universities and colleges. That's a term which we have been hearing from almost everybody in the academic fraternity. So, since education as such is a broad area, so I restricted my the trends that are being observed only to the higher education part. Given the time constraint, I thought this will be the right thing to do. So let's first look at the impact of COVID on education. Okay, so before I go to the COVID part of it, here is a graph by Kubler-Ross. Kubler-Ross is an American psychiatrist. She was famous for writing a textbook on death and dying in that year. And she had experimented with all patients who have experienced, near death kind of an experience. And based on that, she has identified grief cycle. So this grief cycle, the beauty about this particular cycle is it's also applicable for COVID kind of a scenario during the pandemic as well. So if you look at this graph, the first stage of it is the denial mode, where people are in a denial mindset. They say no, nothing like this can happen. I think that was during January when we were looking at China and thinking that it may not cross the China borders. So that was the denial phase, probably sometime even during in February. But I think when lockdown started happening, when it was becoming evident that the governments are going to announce lockdown, we could observe a sense of anger, frustration, irritation, and whatnot. So during the start of the lockdown. And then, in the midst of the lockdown phase, lockdown 3, 2, and all, we started to enter into a phase where we started to struggle to find meaning of the life. We try to reach out to others, trying to tell one story and trying to understand what is their experience and things like that. And when I think lockdown 4 came in, people were all in depressive mode. They were like, the peak of frustration. They were thinking like, okay, when is this going to end and when are we going to start our normal life? And then I think now we are in an acceptance mode after unlock happened. So we are now starting to explore different options given the status. We have now taken Corona for granted, COVID for granted. Today, nobody, I think, in the road bothers about it, except I see all of us are wearing masks and not even physical distance being maintained. So I think people have started to come to this phase, acceptance state, and they have started to move on. So this is a very good, illustration of the grief cycle, which is also applicable for the COVID scenario. So let's look at, let's start with the teachers because, it had an impact both on students as well as teachers. Let's start with the teachers first. It had both positive and also negative impact on the teachers. We saw some teachers who are taking up to the online mode, trying to teach the kids through online and things like that. We also had scenarios where teachers were forced to quit their jobs and take up other lines of work. So sorry to see some of this photo that I put there. That's from a Times news article. So he's a teacher. He's a master's graduate, MPhil, and his wife is an MBA. Both of them turned into laborers because of the COVID pandemic. So very, very unfortunate. We also heard teachers starting to sell snacks. So those are all areas which, with the academic fraternity may not even imagine that they will actually enter into. But we also saw on the positive side of it, people taking up to the online classes. First, I think it started with the WhatsApp. And then I think gradually it went on to Google Classroom and other kind of technology tools. So on the right hand side, you can see a couple of images. On the bottom right, you have a chemistry teacher teaching, chemistry classes by having that hanger and, tying the cloth to the chair. So that shows the amount of creativity the teacher has brought into teach her class. And on the top right, you have another teacher who's teaching a class placing a refrigerator tray, a transparent refrigerator tray, some creative way of teaching to the students. So this is kind of both mixed kind of an impact both for the teachers and also for the students. So this is the impact that we saw from the teacher side. And on the impact of the students, I think some of these pictures summarize what happened really. We had all these memes circulating in the WhatsApp about the online class. So I think students were initially, they were okay with it because they love to anyway play with the gadgets, play with the mobile and stuff like that. So I think initially they were enjoying it a little bit. I think then when the routine started kicking in that classes are going to happen day in and day out with sometimes stretching over to 5 hours, 6 hours and stuff like that, I think students then started, becoming more stressful. So the initial, feeling was more of an enthusiastic thing, and then as time progressed, they became more stressful. So that was the kind of experience for the students. They also had a lot of distractions because I think so far, before the start of this online class, I think many of the students did not have the experience of going through the online classes. For that matter, even the teachers. So it was a learning experience for both teachers and the students equally. So you can see in many classes, you will have all the videos of people, going in the background, and so people wearing lungis and banians and stuff like that. So creating some embarrassing situation for the teachers. Okay, and we also had equivalent the tech problems. The problem with the technology is the kids are always ahead in terms of the technology. So however good we are in terms of using the technology as adults, the kids are one step ahead of us, and so we have to be very, very careful on how we handle the technology. Just what the right and bottom corner that meme tells you. So there was a teacher who started teaching a class. He didn't know how to increase the volume, so he asked a student, what to do to increase the volume, and he said Alt F4. And I think many of you might know that if you press Alt F4, the window will actually close. The class gets disconnected. So that's what happened. So these are the kind of things that happened. And we also had the other meme circulating. A lot of webinars. In fact, I also attended many webinars during the COVID time. I'm sure many of you have attended a lot of webinars during this COVID period. So a lot of online classes and webinars for everybody here. And one positive thing that came out of it is students were also starting to form what is called as the learning circles. So here the students don the role of a teacher, and so they form a group study kind of a circle, virtual circle, and then they started teaching each other. So I think this is one of our positive takeaway from the COVID pandemic. Although we had a lot of technical troubles and distractions and whatnot, we also see some positive things that are developing from this scenario. And just like with any technology, we just have to give some time to this, because in one survey it was found, global survey that was conducted, it was found that nearly 70 to 80% of the academicians never had any prior experience with teaching online. So that is the scenario. This includes even top professors and academicians from world-class universities. So it's not like this is happening only in Indian colleges or Indian universities. It was a global phenomenon. many of the people were not exposed to online classes. So this was the first time they got exposed and we started facing all the, so that was the impact on the students' front. If you look at the colleges and the universities, I think the primary challenge which all the colleges and universities are facing, including the schools, is how do we implement the physical distancing. I would like to not use the term social distancing because it is not in a literal sense. We can better call this as a physical distancing. So the current capacity, typical classroom in a college or a university will be about 60 students in a classroom. So I think that scenario has gone for a toss today. Looking at the physical distancing implementation, you will have to look at roughly about 1/3 of the strength who can be seated inside a classroom. So which means you can't seat more than 20 students in a class. So that is a big problem for the colleges and the universities because your physical infrastructure is only so much. And so the question comes, how are you going to handle the classes when the students start coming inside after all these lockdowns are done? So one thing that colleges can really look at, and many of them are in fact looking at this option of shift operations, wherein instead of operating from 9 to 5 kind of a scenario, we will start to see colleges starting at early morning and trying to end at even possibly night, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock kind of a thing. And so instead of operating a single shift, you might see a couple of shifts coming in and things like that. So you will also see implementation like staggered shifts, wherein the classes are getting a schedule, even if they are operating on a day basis. You will see that the classes will be scheduled on a staggered basis. So some classes will start at 9, some classes will start at 9:30 or 9:45, just to allow that buffer time for the students to get settled in the classroom and things like that. So that is something which is a scenario to be considered by all the colleges or the university. So the capacity is definitely a constraint for all the colleges and the universities. And it's not so easy to expand this capacity also, because then the regulations also start to kick in. And we also have to look at the student faculty ratio and things like that. So there are a lot of complexities involved in executing this regulation. So physical distancing is definitely a challenge. But I think technology is what is helping us in order to overcome this scenario in some way or the other. And they are also grappling with the newer admissions. I think this year, because I'm in the B school, I can tell you, till today, some of the newer IIMs have not even completed their admission process. So they are still recruiting people, and they have not said that the admission is closed. And if the IIMs are not closing, we can imagine the scenario and the plight of the other colleges and the B schools. So that's what is happening now. And so admissions are a problem everywhere. So how are we going to manage the admissions? Because without admissions, you won't be having enough revenue to run the college or the university. And it's going to impact your funds in a longer term. And then comes the question of fees. How much should you charge? Today, even if you have online class, we now have problems of students complaining that the fees that is being charged is the same as that was charged before the COVID times. And so you should be charging less amount of fees. There is in fact some justification to that. So how much of extent that we need to cut down the fees and things like that is going to be a challenge for all the colleges. On the positive side, we can see that even the colleges which have not been traditionally looking into hygiene and stuff like that will have to now look at implementing hygiene-friendly measures inside the campus. So you will see all the signages in place, you will have the sanitizers, housekeeping and stuff like that, which has to happen throughout. And so with proper inspection by the regulatory authorities, I think this is one positive thing that can come out of COVID. So there will be an increased health awareness and health consciousness among the colleges. So we'll have to wait and see how this actually transpires. So that is something which is for the colleges and the universities. The problem doesn't end here. this is a major problem for the colleges and the universities. So we have decided to venture into the online classes. So how do I deliver the class? What kind of platform to use? A platform like this, WebEX, has its own advantages and disadvantages. There are Zoom, which is very, very user friendly and widely popular platform. WebEx may not be as popular as Zoom. So there are different platforms available, and today there should be at least 100 plus vendors who are in this space who are offering the technology space, the classroom space. So this is one thing which everybody is facing an issue, and how much to invest. Technology is always a high capital intensive area for any institute or even organization, right? So from that sense, how much to invest in a given technology is a big question mark for all of them. And so this is a very big issue for all the colleges or the universities, how much to invest in the technology. And also, like I said, the problem also lies with the fact there are so many people who have now started to offer in different spaces. Today we have, for example, many of you might have heard about the Google Classroom, which is part of the G Suite. So it was not popular earlier, but once COVID came in, people started looking at Google Classroom as one of the alternatives. So you also have the repositories there where the students and teachers can exchange notes and materials. So that itself is a separate market. There is a separate set of vendors who are available in that space. You also have ERP and stuff like that. There are so many applications which the universities and the colleges have to evaluate. So even in our college, we face this kind of an issue. We are investing in technology. We have now invested at least close to 15 lakhs so far in order to manage this technology. And the biggest question mark comes, in terms of how do we administer the exams. So, yeah, I think today we take it for granted. Online exams are farce. That's something which everybody can't do. And even if we do, we have to take it for granted that the student is going to cheat in one way or the other. I think today technology also provides us with those kind of applications. We have a lot of technological tools, proctoring tools available. A good proctoring tool will not only monitor the exams, it will also monitor your classes. So on a day-to-day basis, when you run the class, so you don't have to worry as a teacher whether the students are switching off the video. Even if they switch on the video, are they listening to you, or are they having any distraction? And today, attendance is one of a bigger problem for everyone, right? So these technology tools have gone to that extent where instead of marking a student as present or absent, which we normally do, these technology tools are allowing people to mark 50% attendance and 60% attendance and stuff like that. Which means even if the student is attending the class, we can mark a percentage level of attendance he was in the monitor. So let's say he goes on to drink some water, he takes an excuse from the teacher and goes away for a couple of minutes. So that 2 minutes is actually subtracted from the total time of the lecture. So today we have tools which can assess to that extent. So with proper implementation, I am very sure that these are all temporary phenomenon, temporary challenges which everybody faces. We will see a completely new trend evolving in this technology space, and we will be very easily able to administer the exam. So the short answer for all these questions is yes, it's possible. Whatever we are facing currently is only a temporary phase, and we will go through this phase and start seeing more technological adoption in terms of both for classes and also for the exams. Parents and public also had equivalently bigger impact. Parents, before they were gadget agnostic, meaning they were hating students or kids having mobiles and tablets. I myself grapple with my son, trying to fight with him. You are on the mobile all the time. And once the COVID kicked in, we are not even bothered that they are all the time in the mobile or the computer. So this is one shift that has happened, whether it's for good or bad. So this is something which has impacted in terms of the parents of the public. The other major thing that happened was the class 10 and 12. First, it was the results. Then it was the current students who went into class 10 and 12. So what are going to be the kind of implementation for the classes for these students now? How are they going to go through the current classes? And what will happen to the students who have completed the class +2? Are the colleges going to admit? We see colleges have already started admitting people, but no one is really sure how the classes are going to start. People are saying it will start through online and eventually move on to the physical side. So we have a continuity problem there. So that's a problem. And yeah, fees is definitely a problem with the parents, because this is a problem with not just the teacher, it's also with the student and also with the university. So this is a central issue that needs to be addressed. How much fees, if at all we decide to reduce, how much should be reduced is a big question mark. And people are also questioning the salaries of the teachers. So given this COVID scenario, is it right to pay the teacher his or her full salary? I think that's a very bad decision, I would say, because as a teacher, if you have been teaching online in some way or the other, there is no point in actually looking at cutting a salary of a teacher. In fact, I can vouch for it. Instead of a physical classroom, delivering online is going to be very tougher because of the effort that you need to put in terms of preparatory content and stuff like that. So there is actually no valid basis on which this whole thing has come up, whether the salary of the teacher needs to be cut. So I think it's a question of allocating teachers' role in different ways, and we shouldn't really be cutting the salaries of the teachers. So that is my own personal opinion about this. So to pay or not to pay, my opinion is yes, whether you are a school teacher or any other teacher, you should not be looking at cutting the salary of a teacher as a college or a university. But of course, you can always have this scope, because the students are not utilizing the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, you are saving in terms of the utilities. So there is some extent to which you can actually adjust your fees in that front. So there are ways in which you can accommodate that kind of a request, fees reduction. So coming to the takeaways from the COVID, we should actually be looking at every crisis as an opportunity instead of looking at crisis as a crisis. In fact, I started my first class during March 22nd when the first lockdown was announced. And so we have to look at the crisis as an opportunity. We need to be agile. It's both with the colleges, parents, and the students. They need to be agile in terms of making the decisions. We need to adapt to the situation. We need to be more creative than before in terms of delivering the classes and also managing the other issues that are coming up. And this is one important point, the last one there, relationships and emotional connect, which is what everybody is missing. Today, you ask anybody who's teaching an online class, they can clearly tell that, this is an issue. But even here, I would say that there are ways in which this can be countered by reaching out to the individual students. You have what is called as the mentoring facilities, which many colleges do. In fact, in our own college, we have this mentoring facilities where we connect with the students. So there is a set of students who are assigned to us, and we are individually responsible for guiding them through these kind of situations. So trying to connect with the students in some way or the other outside of the classroom becomes a equivalently important issue. So these are the different takeaways that one can have from the COVID. Now let me move on to the trends in the higher education. Yeah. There is now a trend towards multidisciplinary universities. This is not a new trend, I would say. In fact, institutes like IISc, for example, have always been embracing this kind of a philosophy, wherein a student who is doing a course is allowed to take courses from various departments. So if I'm doing a course in science, then I can do it do a couple of courses in engineering or any other department which I would actually like to do. So that's something which is evolving. And you will also have multiple entry and exit kind of a model. Now today we say BE or a BCom is like a fixed 3 years period or a 4-year period. So you say when you enter into the college, so you will be fixed, I mean, you will be in the college for 3 years and you will graduate only after this 3 years, right? So what this technology also has done is with the advent of all these MOOC courses and other online courses, NPTEL and SWAYAM courses like that, today I think there is a lot of flexibility in terms of choosing a course. So we have to forcibly look at hybrid models where modular courses are being designed, modular degrees are being designed. So which means a BCom can be completed in 5 or 6 years time span. A student can enter into the first year, complete the first year, go back to the job, come back on the third year and start doing the graduation. So that is something, a trend which is evolving now, and this will definitely happen in the future. It's also called as the hop on and hop off kind of a model. And this is the other point that is which is coming up. All the activities now, what we call them as co-curricular. For example, a sports activity. Somebody plays cricket. If a student is really good at playing cricket, then it's now being considered as an extracurricular activity, right? So the logic now is even the new educational policy is trying to take this mindset. This is the philosophy in which it has designed the holistic policy. So all the activities are now forming part of your curriculum. So whether the student does a yoga or plays a sport or is a cricket player or a basketball player or does singing or dancing, everything is going to be a curricular activity. So which means a student can be holistically developed. He can be multifaceted personality instead of just looking at the books. And now we are indirectly saying that always the books is going to be important because we say other activities are extracurricular. So once this kicks in, then all activities are going to be form of the curriculum, and any activity that you do will have certain credits associated to it, and that credit will be taken into the total credits which a student has completed. So this is one trend which is evolving. You will also see improvised graded autonomy. Graded autonomy is already in place for higher education institutions. NBA, for example, has 3 tierization available. For us, for example, B schools, we are categorized into 3 different categories like Tier A, Tier B, and Tier C. So Tier 1 is fully autonomous, Tier B is semi, and Tier C is fully controlled, fully regulated. So those kind of a categorization. And national education policy is in fact also touching upon dichotomy in that, meaning you are either accredited or not. So accreditation is going to be a big challenge in the future, and that's why I think they are also moving towards a single regulator for all the higher education. So you will not have probably AICTE in the future or UGC in the future. What you will have is a Higher Education Council of India, which will take care of all these issues. But that's going to be a big challenge. So graded autonomy is there currently, but this will be improved in another 5 to 10 years time, and eventually you will have different versions of gradations for the colleges and the universities. And the second point is really interesting. We already see this. Many of you may not know. There is now an academic bank of certifications. There is a NSDL, which you might know of the stock market. It's a depository organization wherein you can have the demat account of the stocks. Now, in a similar way, your education will also have a demat account. So which means all the credits that you complete will be stored in this academic bank. And so you can keep accumulating these credits from time to time. And so this is where it will also help that hop on and hop off model that I was talking about earlier. So if a student completes the first year, he would have accumulated, let's say, 30 credits, and that 30 credit will be stored in the credit bank. And once he comes back, he can come back to the same institution, or he can go back to any other institution that he likes, which offers a similar course. And this credit will be checked from the national depository, and then he will be admitted. So you can see the advantage of centralizing all these credits. And so already this is in place. In fact, I have personally overseen some of this activity for the NAT. We have already uploaded the students' certificates digitally in the website. And so in future, anybody wants to check the certificate, its genuineness, can just go to the website and check for the genuineness of the certificate. So that's going to come up in the future. We already have the choice-based credit, which basically means that you are free to choose whatever course you want. You will increasingly see more such offerings happening in the courses. So that will happen. And of course, increased technological adoption. You will start to see technology entering into different spaces. Today itself, we see the advent of the augmented reality. One of our own faculty colleague has engaged in developing a case study on a managerial topic, one topic in HR. So she has partnered with one technology company, and she has created a case study where it is an immersive learning experience. So she has spent, like about 3 to 4 months in developing the case. So you go to the environment, you capture the entire environment in the camera, and you store them, and you kind of edit this video to include any questions and answers. And then once that is developed, all you need to do is wear a AR device or a VR device, and a student can be walked through the entire exercise on his own at a time and place of his convenience. That's going to kick in sooner. So we will see increased adoption of virtual reality and augmented reality and things like that. So technology sure is going to be adopted increasingly in the future. So I think with that, let me come to the closing remarks. This should have been posted as the first slide, but I think I've kept it at the last because having seen all that, we also now have to see what should be the goal of our ideal education. So this is what I feel is the goal of an ideal education. It should involve, teaching, research, and consulting. So today in India, the biggest problem is you always say somebody as a teacher. Very rarely you call somebody as a researcher or a consultant. If you are a consultant, then you are not a teacher. If you are a researcher, then you are not a consultant, and stuff like that, right? So in Western universities, you have a different system in place. You have what is called as the track system, where one track you will have all faculty members doing pure research activity. So they will be contributing to research articles and things like that. They will be engaging R&D and things like that. Then you will have a separate track system where teachers are engaged in only pure delivery of the classes. So as a teacher, you don't have to do anything else apart from teaching a class. And then you have what is called as the consulting, which needs to be integrated with both teaching and the research. So what I sincerely feel, and many of the institutes even today, the top institutes are encouraging this activity, that is an academician can be a teacher, he can be a researcher, and he can also be a consultant. The advantage here is, as a consultant, you are interacting with the industry. So you get to know what are the best practices in the industry, and you take that to the college or the university. So, and then you are delivering it to the students. So I myself have personally engaged in this kind of a thing, and I've also done the research. So to some extent, I have done all these three together. And so the advantage here is you can bring the latest in the technology, latest in the industry. So that will really help in terms of improvising the curriculum. And then, the second one is very important. As a teacher, the goal of the education should be to communicate unbiased facts. It should not be ideologically bound or politically motivated. So all the facts should be conveyed true to the book. So you should not bias, you should not tamper with the facts. You have to allow the student to think and decide on what is right and what is wrong. And good education should also encourage liberal and critical thinking, because that is what is lacking in the current educational system. In a way, it's good that national education policy is considering this aspect, both liberal and critical, right? So instead of trying to have rote learning in place, you should actually allow the student to be more critical in terms of learning. So once a student becomes critical of the learning, then the facts will be easier to accumulate. He will become more open and will not be an introvert. And last thing, which is very, very important, I feel, is the ethics and the values. So any good education should instill ethics in the student's mind and also the values. So whatever kind of education that we teach, we should not forget this, that we have to instill ethics and values in the student's mind. I think these are the ideal goals of an education. So this is something which is that needs to be considered by the teacher and also by the colleges, universities, parents, and public. So I think with that, let's take a look at the last slide. Have you seen this picture somewhere? I think this circulated sometime back in WhatsApp. This is a bridge called Choluteca Bridge. This is a bridge in Honduras. This was built during 1998. So I think the president back then in Honduras saying that there is a bridge which is older, and so they wanted to build in a new bridge that withstands whatever hurricane or whatever storm that comes in. So they built a bridge in 1998, a very strong bridge which is about 500 meters long. So it connected the either end of the older bridges. Okay, and so what happened the very same year, the Hurricane Mitch came in and completely devastated the bridge that is leading to this newer one, and also the roads that are leading after the bridge. And you can see the current status of this bridge. The river has actually changed the course, and which was actually flowing earlier under the bridge is now changed course. So the takeaway from this particular slide is change is constant, and you need to actually adapt to the change. I think education is no less exposed to this kind of a scenario. So as an educationist or any stakeholder who are involved in education in some way or the other, we have to look at this change and kind of adapt and move forward. I think with that closing remark, let me come to the end and I will take up any Q&As.
Very well done, Ramasubramaniam.
Thank you, madam.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
I am Perumal from CSE department.
Yes, sir.
So you know that nowadays we are handling the classes through online only.
Yeah.
Is there any specific methods to have initiate the students to be interested in the online classes?
Okay. Actually, this is a good question, but see, answer to this is that is something cannot be said in a couple of minutes. The short answer for this would be you have to experiment with multiple ways of delivery. Instead of just talking through the slides, something like which I taken you through now. This is a webinar, so I take you through the slides. Instead of doing this, what you can do is you can prepare the content upfront. What we generally do is we prepare the slides upfront, we generate all the content, we post it in the learning management system. And then what we ask the students to do is ask them to go through the material before they even come to the class. So let's say today, if I'm handling a topic on data structures, then I would prepare the content on data structures and I will upload earlier. I will give also the textbook corresponding materials to read, ask the students to read. Once they come inside, I will test them whether they have done that study. So quickly I will conduct a poll or a quiz to test that whether they have learned it, and that will be taken for the total marks. So instead of taking your marks intermittently at the test and the end exam, instead of doing that system, you should actually engage in a continuous assessment. So every class should be an assessment in online. Okay, no class should be wasted. So every class, when the student goes through, some kind of assessment has to happen, and that has to be factored in your full marks. So rather than having a final exam, you need to look at a continuous assessment, and you can accumulate all the scores which the student has taken throughout the class, throughout the course, and then take that as a total mark.
Good evening, Ramasubramaniam.
Thank
Who
you,
is
sir.
this? Yeah, Dr. Murali. Yes, Dr. Murali. How are you?
Yeah, I'm actually I am 19 research batch. Is it audible?
Yes, doctor, I can hear you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to congratulate for the wonderful presentation. Since I am
Thank
also
you,
a
doctor.
faculty, first of all, I am proud about your presentation on education after COVID-19. Almost you touched about the status of teachers in this COVID situation, as well as students and education policies and education system and future education system. All these things you touched. The presentation is wonderful. Especially I appreciate the optimum stating the development of online classes with the teachers and their innovative ideas to teach. The way of presentation and what you prepared is so wonderful. And simply, I don't say the webinar is quite informative like that, because it talked almost about the life of the faculty and students. Totally, it's very good. One question. In physical classes, 60 students, maximum 60 students may be there. One teacher will be going and taking the class. But
Correct.
now, these online classes, if one teacher takes the class, around 200 to 300 students are listening.
Correct.
How do you see this effect will be affected by the
Yeah, see, that is where I think that's a very good question, doctor. See, what you need to do is when we start teaching online classes, especially to higher strength, right? 200 and 300 is not a small number. In a physical classroom, like you rightly said, we would be addressing up to, let's say, a maximum of 60 students at a given time. When it comes to higher numbers, what we need to do is you should not be actually handling this class alone. The only way this can be handled is to have somebody assist you. So you need to have a teaching assistant who is exclusively assigned for this particular course. And you can also see that when the teacher is teaching online class, a lot of chats will happen. So the student will be chatting in the chat box, and it will, keeping on popping up. So yeah, so it will also be a distraction for all the teachers, right? So the role of the teaching assistant here is, or the moderator, I would say the moderator. The moderator's role is go through the chats, pick out key questions that are relevant for the talk, and then address it to the teacher at the end of the class. That is the right way to do it. So the moderator has to sit through the entire class, look at the attendance, monitor the students, and collect all the questions, and then present it to the teacher at the end of the class. So towards the end of the class, you should be having about 5 to 10 minutes of time in which you answer the queries that are coming in the chats. And the rest can be actually taken up in the forum. See, today the interaction need not happen only through online class. It can happen through the LMS, whether it is say Google Classroom or any other LMS. You will have online forums available where the students and the teachers can interact. In fact, you should be having an assessment where the student should be encouraged to participate in the forum. So the forum discussion has to happen, and you should be awarding certain marks for the forum engagement, right? So let's say, I think ours is mechanical, right? So let's say if you are teaching a topic on first law of thermodynamics, then you should be allowing the student to discuss in the forum about first law of thermodynamics. Ask them to discuss about it, let them bring applications from the textbook or any other place, allow them to discuss in the forum, and as a teacher, you monitor the forum and then give certain marks for the participation. So if a student is participating actively, you can give a mark for him. The student is not participating, you can ask them to participate. So that's how it should be actually structured. So effective engagement is not just restricted to the online, that 1 hour alone. Engagement has to happen 24/7. So that's the key difference between a conventional delivery and an online delivery. In fact, we have designed a course, we delivered a course for the teachers alone during the COVID times. We ran an entire workshop on how to deliver online courses. It ran for 1 whole week, wherein in the morning we taught them some kind of theoretical stuff, and then in the afternoon they were allowed to experiment with the technological tools like WebEX and other tools. So you need to have training in that. Nobody is trained for this kind of a scenario. No teacher is trained for this, right? So even the teachers and the management has to be trained in this kind of a technology. So it will take some time, but eventually happen.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
Thanks, Doctor.
Good evening, Dr. Ramasubramaniam. This is
Yes,
Muruganandam.
I can see that.
Okay, so it's a very well presented session, eloquently presented, and you summarized very well the aspects of post-COVID education. But I have two comments. Probably you can address that. Mainly, they are around the emotional connect. One is between one is between the student and the teacher. The next one is the student and the campus. For example, the laboratory, where the student has to be physically present. Okay, so how to address this during this situation? If you can throw some light on this, it will be helpful.
Okay, see, the first point I think I briefly touch upon during the slide itself. See, emotional connect is very, very important because the students are looking at the classes all the time, online classes, they're sitting through the gadgets. So it's very important that a teacher connects to the student in different ways. So I think technology today allows us to connect in different ways. So as a teacher today, I can connect through WhatsApp, I can connect through the LMS. That's how, when I said forum discussion, right? Forum is a way of engaging with the student. It's also a way of engaging with the student in a personal way. So the emotional connect can happen through the technology. It can also happen through the personal mentoring. So each teacher should have certain students associated with him, through which he continuously monitors the mindset of the student. So it's like, see, I have personally about 10-12 students with me who are assigned as mentees. So what I generally do is I just call them every week whenever I feel like. I just give a call, talk to them a couple of minutes, and see how it goes. It's a more informal way of connecting with them. No? It's not a formal way in any sense, and it will not be related to the subject matter. It can be like anything to do with, let's say, Dhoni is retired now. So if the student is like to discuss about Dhoni, for instance, then let's discuss about Dhoni, how he has done in the past and what have we lost and stuff like that, right? So there are different ways in engaging with the students. So emotional connect is very important, and that can be overcome by these means. So that is one. Coming to your second question, that is on the laboratory front. Yeah, see, laboratories, I think engineering laboratories to some extent can be taken through simulation. For example, I have done mechanical, right? So we know in the final year we do this finite element analysis. There is a lab for it. And where does it happen? It happens through the software. So all that you need to do is have a software in place to go through the lab experiment. So those kind of labs can be taken, and there will not be any impact. Where the impact will come is, for example, when I have to go to the workshop and start manufacturing, right? How do I manufacture a product in lathe? That's not possible. So that is where the challenge comes. So the challenge is there. It will take time, and that is where the idea that I advocated earlier in terms of AR and VR technologies. So the advantage with augmented reality is exactly this. Today, I know one company which is actually training its workers by wearing this VR device. So they have developed a software product which walks them through the manufacturing and stage by stage. And so it takes through the shop floor, and the student will be asked a question about, let's say when he looks at a machine, a question will pop up in the device. What is this machine? What is it used for? So then and there the student has to answer. So once he answers, once he clears that question, the software will automatically take him to the next step. So instead of being a normal training, it's becoming now allowing the student to accommodate to the training program or this workshop in a customized manner. So augmented reality is always there to help us. So even if you are not able to physically go to a lab, today you can do that using technology. So I am a sincere and a true believer of technology. I sincerely believe that can be overcome in time. So I think in another 5 to 10 years time we will have solutions for all this. So I'm sure that will be taken care of.
Thanks, Dr. Ramasubramanian. Thanks for addressing the questions, but still, I have a doubt whether that the physical presence of the teacher, right? Can you actually equate that? And the presence in the lab, the physical presence in the lab and handling the machine, can we equate that?
See,
Though we
anyway,
can
this is
have,
going to be this is going to be a temporary phenomenon, and once the pandemic is also done with, like I said, if you can implement the physical distancing right in the colleges, you will have to take it through a shift-based kind of a system. So in a shift-based system, it is still taken care. The student still comes to the lab and works on the physical setup, right? So I think there is no issue there. So it may be a temporary phenomenon now that students are not able to go back, but it's not going to remain in such a way for a longer time. Anyways, we are going to see students going back to the colleges. If not now, in January they are going to go back, right? So then I think this problem can be addressed. It's just a matter of time. Yes.
okay. Thanks, Ramasubramanian. Thank you.
So this is Veena here. Very informative and useful session.
Yes, Veena.
So it was really nice listening to the session. I think the way you took the presentation also, it was very informative, right? From looking at all angles. So I had one question. It relates exactly. Okay, so now we are talking about this phenomenon and the need to go in online teaching and all that. One thing is, as of now, some maybe students could feel it or teachers could also feel it. So there is which is involved in taking the online classes or even getting trained for students listening to these online classes. So there is an equivalent amount of stress. Another thing is data, mobile data or the connection. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice was.
Is this better? Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better, Veena now. Yeah.
There are certain things that are stressing families, right? Like because of obviously data being involved, or even say mobile phones by which their parents and children use, or even though technology is required. But so there is this amount of let's say stress. It need not be large. It depends on the family. It depends on it could be urban sector or rural sector. It's more. So how do you think we can, equip ourselves better, or what could we do about this? Since it's going to stay, like you said, it's going to be there for another few months.
Yes.
How do we prepare? Yeah.
Okay. See, one thing is the students have not been trained in the technology and the way they should be handling this. That's one, because we didn't have enough time to cope up with the scenario. So everything was happening very fast. So we had very little time to react for all this, right? So I think students were not prepared, teachers were not prepared, parents were not prepared for it. See, as a teacher, now I am better prepared to handle this. But it took me about 2 to 3 months of time. But I think now also as a parent, I'm starting to realize how this can be actually handled in the family. So I try to, take it easy. And if something goes wrong, for example, many of us face this problem of disruption in the connectivity. So the class happens and there is a connectivity disruption, and immediately the student panics, the parent panics. So I think when it comes to the technology, we should assume that technology is going to fail. If you ask me every time when I go to a class, I will assume that the connectivity is going to go down, it's going to break. So what should I be doing? Every class, literally. So I have to plan every class in a way that if my class is getting disconnected, if it's getting interrupted, what is the alternative means of delivery? So I don't feel stressed. Let's say if the power cuts off, okay, I am all set and I am about to deliver, the power goes in. What will you do? So that's where I said the preparatory content and that needs to be uploaded in the LMS and stuff like that, right? So that will help me. So then immediately I can take to mobile and just send a message, go through this material that I have uploaded in the LMS, and I will join in 15-20 minutes and things like that. So immediately when I am prepared for this disruption, when I am prepared for this situation, right, I can better handle this. So as a teacher, you need to be trained for this. But for the parent, I think the situation is entirely different because nobody trains the parent. But I think it will take time. I think there should be some forums wherein the parents should also be oriented towards how they should be handling the online classes. See, when we started, we set a clear rules for the online engagement. So we said you have to sit in the monitor, you have to switch on the video, there should be a clear background, your face should be visible, there should be nobody who's walking background and stuff like that. So you set a clear guideline in place before you actually start the online class. And you also need to convey this to the parents because they're also new to this. So I see the majority of this stress is coming from the fact that nobody is prepared for this. I think if everybody is prepared for this scenario, then I think we can better reduce the stress. So as a teacher, if you are getting trained on this, your stress will get reduced. As a parent, you should also be talking with the teacher and trying to understand what are the different ways of engagement and what can be done, things like that. Parents themselves can form groups and start to engage informally. So that is one way they can reduce the stress. And yes, students, I think the only way to reduce the stress level of students is not to bother them too much on the studies. Allow them to focus on other activities like singing or dancing and stuff like that. I think that is very, very important. There should be a lighter activity followed by a very intense activity. So attending an online class at a stage for 3 to 4 hours is very intense, very difficult for a child. So it's very important that what is the other lighter activity that you actually plan for the student. So allow the student to rest enough, talk with them, try to find out what are the problems. I think talking itself will actually reduce the stress in a lot of ways. But I know it's difficult with the kids, grown-ups, especially 17s and 18s, very difficult to talk with them as a parent, which I am also facing. So that's it. I think these are some ways in which you can actually handle the stress.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Thomas. Yeah.
So we have hand raised by Mukesh Khanna. Let me check whether he has a question.
Sir, I'm Mukesh from Technical Ramakrishna.
Mukesh, yes. Mukesh, yeah.
So, while you are saying that during there is a stress level, how we can reduce more amount of stress rather than you are saying that like dancing or singing? We
Sorry, sorry, Mukesh, your voice is a little louder.
sir, can you just now hear me, sir?
Yes, Mukesh.
Sir, reduce our stress rather than by dancing or singing. Yes, sir.
Okay. Other than dancing and singing, you are asking.
Yes, sir.
So definitely, I think there are different ways. By engaging in exercises, for example, physical exercises, yoga and meditation is the only known way of reducing the stress level. Hearing to music, music, yoga, and meditation will definitely reduce the stress, whatever stress it is. Yes, and allow enough rest. Instead of watching the gadgets all the time, let the student to sleep at least 7 to 8 hours of time so that the stress level gets reduced.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Sir, hello.
Yes.
So it was a wonderful experience, sir. I do have one question. So the question is, how
Dr. Thomas, your voice is breaking. Dr. Thomas, your voice is breaking.
yeah, hello. Is it audible now?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Yes, sir. So my question is, we are doing online courses. Yes, I also teach, but the thing is, how can I guarantee that the student is attentive to my lectures? Because he is logging into any online platform what we provide. How can we monitor whether he is actually looking at the screen or he has shifted to some other applications in his mobile or laptop, whatever may be?
Okay. Okay. See, what you can do is, see, today there are technological tools available which can do it for you. When Dr. Murali was asking, when there are 200, 300 students present in an online class, as a teacher or a moderator, it's very difficult to monitor all the students, right? So the only way to do it is by using a proctoring tool. See, proctoring tool is not new. If you see all the certification exams that are happening today are by means of the proctoring tool. So when there is a proctoring tool installed in the system, what it does is it allows selectively a particular application to be open, right? What it doesn't allow is it doesn't allow the student to open some other application while the delivery is happening or the exam is happening. So that way you can restrict the students access to a particular application. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. So this is more of a authoritative or a monarchical way, right? So I am right and I will do what I want to do. It's like enforcing rules on the student, which is not actually good. In an ideal education, what you should actually be doing is, if the student is really interested in attending the class, he will actually attend the class whether you ask him to do or not. So, is the student really motivated to attend the class? Is the question that we need to address. So, if he is not attentive in the class, it indicates that our class is not probably interesting for him. So, then we should be finding different ways. Okay, so that is why traditionally we have had systems which encouraged delivery in different forms. So we say this, if a student is good at dancing, he should be tested in the dancing. If a student is good at singing, he should be tested in singing. If a student is good at presenting, he should be presented. Okay, he should be allowed to present. So that's kind of philosophy which even our management advocates, and we are actually moving towards that. When it comes to online class, the responsibility is not just with the teacher. The responsibility is equally lying with the student, and it's our our effort, and we have to ensure that the student is actually learning. So it's a self-responsibility which also comes in the online class. This can be very, very challenging for the kids, for the children, whereas this can be overcome for students who are, let's say, in undergraduation and post-graduation. But for in the school, it's definitely going to be a challenge. But these are some ways in which this issue can be addressed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Today, for my school actually gave a call to actually know who the student is. So,
It's not clear.
Dr. Thomas.
Problem in the sounds. Your voice is breaking.
audible now?
Yes, doctor. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, I had a couple of points which you mentioned that actually that is a question.
That's the problem again. That's the problem again.
Hello.
Yes, doctor. Now we are able to hear you. Yes.
Yes. So I like to add a couple of points that Muruganathan's question regarding the emotional quotient and session. So what actually I look at the coincidence. We got a call from school for my kid. As it was a not a video call, and the purpose was for the teacher to communicate to the student, actually to know who the student is and to let the student know who the student is. So a sort of emotional connect was there actually after a couple of months of teaching. First attempt made by their school. So I think point of that. For there are a number of online virtual. For example, Amrita is providing one session about Amrita virtual lab. And as Ramasubramaniam said, engineering, laboratories, food-based and that is what is available in that virtual lab. So to know more about that, you can go and switch on with that, creating a login ID and password. You can go and check. Otherwise, what we are trying to plan, we are not yet formulated any plans, but we will be just showing instructing how to do the laboratory exercise, and again do it online. But again, still the connect between the practical element is missing there. So as Vasanth said, BC and AD has changed into COVID, before COVID and after COVID. Only after COVID should answer that. So far, as Dr. Ramasubramaniam sir also said, everything could be online only as per time being, because the physical distancing is the prime criteria what we are focusing into, and also to have a shift base in college is a bit difficult now, because we have to provide the hostel facility for the students. So accommodating them to conduct shift base is also a bit of problem, but still everything put together, the academicians are doing a wonderful job.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Thomas, I have a point to add on that. See, I don't know, but you might have heard about a concept called a flipped classroom, right? Yes, so today you can have a flipped device in the classroom. So I said 60 students can be seated in a class. So 1/3 will be sitting inside the physical class. So instead of 60 inside a class, you will have 20 inside a class. Now, what happens to the rest 40? Let's say you have the other students, your normal hostel facilities are available. So those students will be staying back in their hostels, but taking the classes virtually. So while the delivery happens in the physical classroom, it can be streamed live across to the hostels. In fact, we have invested, I said about 15 lakhs that we have invested now. So some portion of the investment has actually gone into the flipped classroom, where we have already set up one classroom like this. And so the teacher can use the flipped classroom. He will write in this board. It's nothing but a TV device. It's a Samsung TV. It also has an additional facility box for touch and write. So you can write in the board. It will take certain seconds of fraction in terms of lag, and it will reach the student. So when the teacher is delivering in the classroom, simultaneously the student can be listening from the hostel or even from the home. And then you can rotate this now on a round robin basis. So today first 20 attends the class, the next day second 20 attends the class, third day the last 20 will attend the class. So that way you can rotate among the students and still handle this issue. Yes.
It looks good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we are implementing. In fact, our classes are going to start tomorrow that way. Tomorrow our first class is going to happen that way. One of our colleagues is going to handle the flipped classroom, and that's going to be streamed live across online. So he will be teaching in a physical class in the campus, but it will be streamed across WebEX through the students, for the students. Yeah.
So one last question. Sorry for putting question.
No problem. Happy to answer.
Yeah. So far we have online platforms like WebEX,
Sorry, Dr. Thomas, again you are not audible.
Sanjay, your voice is disturbing.
The question is, we have Google Meet, we have Zoom, we have WebEx.
Okay, yeah.
We have many other online platforms. So, which platform do you suggest to go with?
See, that depends on what kind of other infrastructure that you need to have in place. It's a question which should not be looked at in isolation. Is Zoom platform alone enough for you? Is WebEx platform alone enough for you? It's okay. For example, I will say Zoom is fine if you are not looking at other infrastructure. Okay, but if you are considering other infrastructure, for example, I was talking about our flipped classroom. I can tell from my experience what is happening. So we have WebEx platform in our institute. This was a conscious decision because our other infrastructure, other hardware were all Cisco based. Because WebEx is all Cisco based, it's very easy to integrate the Cisco platform with the hardware device. So what happens is tomorrow the class is going to start. It will be delivered in a flipped classroom. It's a Cisco hardware for us. So the camera, the device which captures the teacher's writing, the presentation, everything is in a Cisco based hardware. So now if that has to happen seamlessly, then the platform for streaming should also be going in line with the hardware, right? If that's the case, then you have the rest of the infrastructure in the Cisco, then it only makes sense to go for WebEx, right? So that's the reason why we have gone in for WebEx, because Cisco has proven to be security effective. It's very secure platform. I know, see, today, personally, if you ask me whether you will go for a Zoom or a WebEx, I will outright vote for Zoom, because Zoom is very user friendly, as everybody might have used and known and can vouch for it. But still, when it comes to security and issues like that, I can surely say WebEx is better, but other platforms are also picking up. So you need to have some due diligence in place. You need to evaluate all the technology tools. That in itself is a very big exercise, which platform to choose. And I can say we have been evaluating at least 25 to 30 different tools for the flipped classroom, for the LMS. You see, we have the Moodle platform, which is an LMS which we have been using so far. Today, we are also now looking at platforms like LMS, Brightspace, Canvas, Blackboard, and the other LMS facilities. And now we are also looking at integrating the WebEx session inside a learning management system. For example, today Moodle allows us to do that. You can do a WebEx integration right within the LMS platform. So that way, when the students log into LMS platform, session by session, they will have the material available. They will also have the videos available. Once the session is completed in WebEx, it will be available as a video online in the LMS platform. So the student doesn't have to log into the WebEx. He just has to log into the LMS platform and he can watch the video right there. So yes, so you need to look at the platform from multiple angles. It's not a very easy question to answer.
So Ram, this is Anthony. One small information. Zoom
Yes,
owner is from actually this is Cisco WebEx team.
I know that. Yes,
Yeah,
I know
because
that.
so actually they are the one, like Cisco is the one who started WebEx.
One of the founders
So
from the Zoom only has
founders, all those like telecom line, if you take the datacom and networking, they are the masters. So as you told, the security wise, that's the like the top one. Nobody can hack
Beat Cisco.
from outside.
Yes.
Yeah, right, beat Cisco.
Thank
But
you,
the
sir.
other tools also, yes. Yes, doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't have any other questions, like with your permission, Dr. Ramasubramaniam sir, shall we go into the next session? That is a closing remark.
Thomas, sir, 1 second.
Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Ramasubramaniam sir,
Yes.
நான் as a parent மட்டும் நான் பார்த்துக்கிட்டு இருந்தேன். What is in a classroom activity ன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. So today you gave a perspective from all different angles, not only from a student, from staff, and all difficulties that they face. And really thanks, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thomas, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Ramasubramaniam sir, from the batch 94 to 98 mechanical, first batch from SREC. Thank you so much for being with us and for delivering a wonderful session on education in post-COVID era. Thank you so much, sir. SREC Alumni Association is proud to host you. It is a privilege to have a wonderful session from our first batch students. So already a couple of first batch members have already done the webinar talk, and thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Thank you, audience. Special thanks to Veena ma'am for roping in Dr. Ramasubramaniam sir. Thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful representation from the Chennai chapter. We do hope many more from Chennai chapter and other chapters are going to join us in the webinar talk series planned. So every Sunday 6 to 6:40 we have planned that.
So Bangalore chapter also, somebody is there, Thomas. You need to thank the Bangalore chapter also.
Definitely, and Mr. Sir, definitely. On record, we thank you, sir, for your wonderful association with the webinar talk series as well as SREC Alumni Association is concerned. Thank you, sir. And with respect to next Sunday, we have planned our annual general body meeting. The 20th annual general body meeting is planned, as well as the annual alumni meet is also planned on 23rd. For that, the timing is the same, 6 to 8 is what we have planned. So we have brought in one stand-up comedian for the first time in SREC alumni history. So we roped in one Manoj Prabhakar. I request the convener of the program, Naveen Krishnamurthy, to have a say on that. Is Naveen with us?
I am very much here, and I am the only person who always, is live and switch on the video, whereas all of other people, you don't put on your shirt, I don't know, but you switch on your videos.
That's the problem. That's the truth.
Yeah, so
sometimes it happens, everybody switches off the video. It looks like you are actually talking to some non-living thing.
Exactly. So
somebody like drive some drives.
So coach is done close to, I think, about so he's known to me, and he works with Evam, which is Evam is brand out of Chennai for all stand-up comics, including Karthik Kumar, Alex. All these people started with Evam. So Manoj is one of guys. I hope he would entertain us and people would like him. and you can just go and Google, the Manoj Prabhakar, and you would go to his page, and you could read a lot, or watch a few videos on how this talk is going to be. And I really didn't know, Thomas sir is going to pull me in today. So I don't know what joke to crack. So this is the intro that I can give about Manoj, and hope to see everyone on board next week, and hope to have a bigger audience. So at least let's have about 500 people signing in from different places, and make WebEX crash. So let's take that as a challenge, and requesting everyone to invite your batchmates to join in. That's it.
We
Thank
expect
you, Naveen. Thank you.
more contributions from Chennai, Bangalore chapters also. We expect more team members to come in.